The majority of the conversation today is purely centered around money, materialism, what this person needs to be doing, high value, low value, all this other nonsense that people talk about today. But it's never about genuine connection or bonding or people having, even connecting on some spiritual level. What it's about basically is money. And I think what we're finally seeing is the side effects. Well, we've been seeing it for years, the side effects of sexual liberation, of unregulated sexual marketplace, and the removal of male authority. You see, women in general wanted to be from under the leadership of men. And what that has consequences, because men vet other men for character, not just for their resources, even though that's important. But we also vet men for character. But the women wanted total control of it. Now, there were some bad men back in the days that did some things, we must be honest. But overall, the system where there was accountability actually worked. So men didn't create this environment of sexual liberation. Women wanted it. Women fought hard to be free of men telling them not to get vigorously and viciously pounded out by multiple men. They fought hard for this. And the men said, okay, here you go. With feminism, with sexual liberation, with the hormonal birth control, created a lot of freedom, especially women started making money. But there are certain things in life that are just controlled by nature. And one of them is that people, when they continue to have these spiritual bonds with each other, they lose their ability to bond in a long-term relationship. They get imprinted. And what has happened now, if we see this gold-digging society with a bunch of women who have mismanaged their youth, rejected any form of religious control, patriarchal control. They didn't listen to their fathers, their mothers, their well, many of their mothers, and well into this feminism stuff. And some of these simp, liberal-minded fathers just let the women do whatever the hell they want to do. We got some jelly-back fathers too. We got to spread accountability everywhere. But inevitably, what is created is a system now where many women in their youth who bought into sexual liberation are getting imprinted by certain men of a certain status, caliber, or masculinity. And they're getting passed around like some Skittles, touching the rainbow every time. And guess what? Now what happens is marriage and long-term relationship is delayed until after the fact. So the married guy is actually getting the worst deal. He's getting a ran through, heavily pounded woman with trauma and spiritual bonds to other men, especially if that man who twisted her out is more dominant than the man, or this is just on a psychological, emotional level, than the man that she's currently supposed to marry or be with, likely for his resources. And now it becomes such a predatory, mercenary type arrangement with that man. But she really hates that man because deep down inside, she really desires that guy, maybe on the football team, the basketball team that she enjoyed when she was pledging fraternity. And we end up with this situation with a whole bunch of alpha widows punishing men. And we see it especially punishing the average men that probably didn't even have the options to run through a whole bunch of women. They're marrying these guys for resources. After they've enjoyed sexual liberation for so long, that guy is getting a horrible deal. She's waking up in the middle of the night sweating, and it ain't for you, buddy. It is for that dude that she was messing with when she was 22. And this is what men tried to protect women from, but they didn't want that system. They said, you guys are a bunch of chauvinistic, degenerate pigs. You know, we don't want your leadership or anything like that. We want to be free and live life on our own terms. Well, there's consequences for that. That's why I tell you guys to treat women with agency. And you see these women out here, these alpha widows out here. That's what the sprinkle lady is. That's nothing but an alpha late woman turned gold digger. They get vengeance. What they do is when a woman gets pounded and passed like a a basketball, or so John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas to do like an assist to the next man, because really they're going after the guy that arouses them in an unregulated sexual marketplace by men. Men don't regulate the sexual marketplace because fathers would put a stop to that. But they're like, go shut up, dad. I ain't listening to you. My body, my choice. And then what happens is they get aroused and they go after the dude that is just working the women. And he pounds them vigorously. They get imprinted. Now they get mad at men. All men are trash. Guys are a piece of crap. They hate men. And then what happens inevitably, that's why you saw them with these provider men conversations. Men must pay 100% of the bills. These are lifelong feminists, strong and independent. They're going to punish that guy because they're not religious. The Bible says provider. Bullshit. Ain't nothing religious about them. What they're doing is getting payment, reparations for all the heavy pounding they got when they were younger, and the guy didn't marry them. The guy moved on. They want to cash in. They're getting older. They have less time. And that's why this gold digging society is so popular. It's really about getting reparations and punishing. Reparations for them is marriage. And getting that guy that wouldn't date when they were 21, 22, to sign a contract with them and marry them. Most guys don't even know that they're married to an alpha widow. But deep down with social media and all the distraction, again, women don't change their taste in men. They change their taste in lifestyles. So she's still in that guy's, she's still in that guy's orbit. Trust me. And that's why when you see these women check out of these marriages after 10, 15, 20 years, they get the money, they cash out, they get the kids, they really thirst for that guy they want. It's like they get bored because they married purely for money and resources. And he just doesn't do it for them. I mean, they get tired of seeing the guy walk to the shower naked. And they're like, damn it, I want that dude back from college again. And they'll be out here. You see them out here all the time. They're old. They're in their 40s and 50s, thirsting for that alpha. That they can't get him. They say they'd rather be single and die alone. Many of them who have money, who are making money, they'd rather be single because they want a certain caliber of man in terms of physically, and they make money. So they're going to hold out. They're still enjoying sexual liberation. It'd be 7 of them to 1 man, and he just passes them around. Be 7 of them dating one dude because they, until finally they get to that point where they do the Boyce Watkins thing. Where they're like, this shit, I ain't got no more time on the clock. Come on, boys. And they'll marry a guy like that. Because they're just like, shit, Father Time, this milk has only got so much time before it just rots. And it ain't gonna be worth nothing. And that's why you see even out here now, you see even the old gaslighting value. What they do is they gaslight a lot of dudes that don't know any better, that are controlled by that clan, by pre-owned box, guys that pedestalize box. You got these old chicken heads on there like Dr. Bryant and all these other women. These are burnt out Shing-Yu women, Shing-Yu leftover women, because there's so many jellyback simps in this world. They don't even call them out for what you guys are crazy. You think that you're going to extract some value out of some old burnt out woman. I don't care if she's in the church. See, you guys go for them pump fakes because you're thirsty and you haven't figured out how to transact pre-owned without these women locking you down and signing their name to your assets. Because that's what they really want. It's about leverage. It's about leverage to get resources out of your ass. It don't matter what they say. Oh, I make $100,000. Bullshit, they're broke. They make $100,000, they spend $200,000. Or they're in debt. Their car payment is $1,800 a month. Even a guy like me who's average, I have a 0 car payment. They live life expensive and they're looking for a bailout. And they use all this gold digging, mind manipulating bullshit to get you guys using your hormones against you. Because even old, crusty, pre-owned box looks appetizing to a dude that hasn't been fed in a while. So he'd be like, that's why we have such an epidemic of post-nut clarity depression. When dude finally empties his balls and you look over at the bed and be like, holy crap, what did I just pound? And she wants to be in a relationship. Then you look at the mileage from all the years and the baggage and the drama. Because women don't get better, they just become better victims. But now she wants to be on your tab. Now she wants you to wine and dine and whatever else. And you realize that the dudes that she's been with before, and they want to, anytime they start this conversation about real man or man need to be doing this or, whatever. And when they use the church, the first thing they talk about is man is a provider and protector. He paid 100% of bills. Oh, well, great. So that means that you're a virgin. You're virtuous. You're Proverbs 31. You're Proverbs. You're like Ruth. And then they get like, what are you talking about? Everybody has a past. Jesus has forgiven me for my past. They hit you with the Jesus stick. Whack. So they're using God, religion, Jesus to get you to sign on to a bad deal, get leverage. All of a sudden you marry one of them broads or get in a long-term relationship. That Jesus shit go out the back window. You got yourself a old 304 when you're gonna get pre-owned box. You're gonna be walking around with something on your arm that ain't nothing to be proud of. Because she's gonna be like, well, let's not go to this establishment. Let's not go to this establishment. You wonder why she never wants to go to these places. It's because she don't want to run into dudes that have pounded her. And nothing is more disgraceful and deflating to a man than the idea of he ain't got nothing special. Or another dude, he meet eye to eye with that dude, and he knows what he's done to women, and you can imagine what that guy has done to his woman. That is the most demoralizing feeling a man can ever experience. And that's why this sexual liberation thing is finally exploding. It's exploding with the economy. When those other people were in charge of the government, all this government handout of free money was everywhere, and all this liberal woke ideology spread all over the place. Saying, we don't need no men. Men are trash. Men should be born in jail and earn their way out. Feminism, women empowerment, DEI, all that shit. That shit is gone. Now all of a sudden, that dude that they wouldn't have dated when they were 21 is on the menu. And now, he don't arouse you. Now we're gonna charge that dude provider man prices. That's why marriage dudes get the best deal, worst deal. They're gonna charge him, protect him, provider, and we're gonna use church man shaming to get him to pay up. But smart men with discipline, men with self-esteem, know that they're being gouged. Know that they're it's like a double dipping philosophy and mindset. You give the men that have worked the hardest and stayed the most disciplined the worst deal. The worst deal. You're getting a bad deal. And a lot of guys who smart figured this out, that you're getting the leftovers. You really are. Most men are getting the leftovers. Look, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. Know what you're dealing with. This is a pro-peace, anti-torture channel. I deal with reality. Reality is what I deal with. I'm not saying I'm not anti-relationship or anti-marriage. I'm just like, go into situations with an informed mind, not some delusional fantasy that's been sold to you. So what they do, this gaslighting value is the new theme of the day. Women that have mismanaged their body, jellyback simps over here that's overpaying for pre-owned. And that's the problem that we see out here in society. Why a lot of guys are like, you know what? The juice ain't worth the squeeze. That doesn't mean he's a monk somewhere. He just consumes pre-owned until he runs empty and he moves on. Because at the end of the day, what is he really getting is an empty vessel. You get a lifelong victim, a person that was raised to hate men, the person that is not going to listen to your leadership, and a person that's going to extract resources and wealth from your life. Now, I'm always making an exception for the 10% women. There are women out here that are widows. There are women out here that are not taking part in sexual liberation. Salute to you women. But with freedom comes consequences. Just the way it is. And think Dr. Ryan Turban said it best. You can't have the freedom of a prostitute, and expect the respect and provisions of a wife. You got to pick a lane, like they say. Anyhow, peace and blessings to you guys. Time to hit the gym, get my day started. But we're dealing with an infestation of alpha weirdos punishing average men, digging in their pockets, virtue signaling on the internet, gaslighting value, getting some dude to pay more than the last 30 men before him. That's gouging. Hopefully you guys get smart. Do a history report, a whole facts report. And don't let them use the church and that pastor to backdoor or rebrand and try and get a long-term situation for you, or make higher demands of you that they didn't make of the last 30, 40 guys before you, because you ain't getting nothing special. And then sometimes it's better to have damn nothing than to waste your life walking around with nothing to be proud of on your arms, because she's already tried the village. Anyhow, peace and blessings to you guys. I'm out. Make sure you hit the like button.